Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Fran. In this channel, I share knowledge and practical techniques on trauma healing and the mental health conditions like eating disorder, bipolar disorder, depression, and anxiety. In this video, I wanted to discuss how to love yourself after a toxic relationship. And I wanted to offer you 3 practical steps on how to let go of the shameful feeling and how to set yourself free and offer yourself the biggest compassion to love yourself. Normally after toxic relationships, we find it hard to offer us the same amount of empathy and forgiveness as we would do for other people, for our friends. Because we carry this overwhelming sense of shame and we get trapped in the stories and plots that would tell us, what if I said this, what if I done that, and we wouldn't have ended in this way. When we are trapped in the what if scenarios, it's hard for us to pull ourselves out of the situation and really see it in a more objective way. And it usually requires time and space to see it in a more comprehensive way. That's why normally after a couple months, when we look back, things would have been so clear to us, but at the time, we get trapped in the stories and we get trapped in this unwillingness to love ourselves, to let the past be the past. So the first step here is to deal with the shame directly. The shame that we feel like there's something wrong with us, that we did something or we said something we shouldn't have said, and that caused this relationship to turn toxic. The number one barrier towards loving yourself is shame. The shameful feeling that there must be something wrong with us that we got us into this toxic relationship in the first place. And we believe we're like flawed merchandise that people don't even want to look at. And finally, someone looked at us and they decided to be in a relationship with us. And it also means that we should work extra hard to keep this person by our side, because we don't know how long it's going to take for another person to think us as worthy. In fact, we know exactly what we did. We pushed ourselves into this mess. We indulged in it despite that our guts telling us it doesn't really feel right. We abandon our inner voices and life truth over and over again. Instead of loving and respecting our own boundaries, we let them get violated. And afterwards, when we started to see the pattern, when we started to finally acknowledge it to us that it's toxic, we shame ourselves for being dumb enough to fall for their lies or traps over and over again. At the same time, we feel this overwhelming sense of being defeated, because in our eyes, we fought to keep this person. We fought to meet their needs. We fought to improve this relationship or transform this relationship dynamics to a healthy one. We feel like it's our responsibility. We feel like it must be something wrong with us that we couldn't change or save this relationship. We feel like there's so much things we can do to change it and we haven't done. And we need to figure out what those things are. And we need to try over and over again. To address shame, we need to confront our beliefs. We need to really face ourselves, because a lot of us, we develop this thinking in a very early childhood, because we believe that it was our responsibility to make mama and daddy happy. If they're not happy, there must be something that we did wrong or we said wrong that caused them to be so upset and angry with us. And when they criticize us, we take it personally, because as children, we couldn't have this cognitive maturity to separate what we do from who we are. For example, when I was a kid, I brought home one day my math test score, which showed that I failed. And to Asian family, it's a really big deal, because you're not supposed to suck at math. But I did suck at math. So when they criticized me, I took it personally. I felt like, well, there must be something wrong with me that I couldn't do math like they do. I couldn't be as smart as they are. For all those past years, I was never a really straight A student, because I felt like this belief actually helped me back, because I already believed that there's something wrong with me. So I had a perfect reason to not try hard enough in school. To deal with this aspect of shame that I was feeling, I need to go back to the same event over and over again to re-narrate it to a more, like slightly more objective or even positive one. For example, I could tell myself, well, they just saw so much potential in me. They wanted me to have a better future. So when you go back to re-narrate the old past events, it actually gives you the space to heal. It actually gives you the chance to break free from limiting beliefs that there must be something wrong with you. And that's a very important step for us, to not just blame ourselves, to not take complete responsibility for these toxic relationships that we put ourselves in. Firstly, I want you to remember that it's not your sole responsibility when it involves more than one people in a relationship to make it work. You don't have the responsibility to cure one person. It's not your sole responsibility to change someone or to transform a relationship dynamic. Also, it's not your fault to be in a relationship that turns toxic, because it could happen to anyone, especially people who have gone through trauma in their early childhood. As Sigmund Freud called it, repetition compulsion. We would repeat old and familiar patterns in attempts to fix and remedy the situation subconsciously, even though we're not even aware of it, and actually it has brought more pain and enhanced the circle. So I want you to give yourself some credit, because you have already done the best that you could under that scenario with the knowledge that you had at that time. In the future, with increased awareness, you will be able to make more well-informed decisions, because you will be able to recognize the red flags early in the relationship, and you may tell yourself, you know what, this feels familiar, and I remembered how that went down last time, and this time I'm gonna really love myself. I'm gonna pull myself out of the situation. I think I deserve a healthy relationship. And second step is to spend time alone for self-reflection and healing. The foundation of healing is to turn your focus inward, to get to know yourself, to get to know your voices and know your body and emotions, to know what actually makes you happy and what doesn't. For example, when somebody responds to you in a way, take time to feel how you actually think of that response. Do you feel offended, or you feel okay? When you finish doing something, do you feel fulfilled, or do you feel more empty than ever? When we're talking about boundaries, what is boundary actually? Boundary is a very clearly defined self. You need to have a defined self, like what you like and what you don't like, what makes you happy, what's not making you happy. Because of the knowledge and awareness of all that, then you will be able to build a mutually beneficial boundary in the interaction with other people. A lot of people are afraid to be alone because a lot of voices and thoughts would come up and they cannot fight it. And they're scared to face their emotions and feelings, and they're trying to suppress it, trying to distract ourselves from the current moment. When we master the art of distraction, we become numb and indifferent. A lot of codependents, like how I used to be myself, are terrified of conflicts, because firstly, we don't believe that our feelings or thoughts are validated by other people, and secondly, we don't know how to express ourselves, especially when we didn't know how we feel. So we really don't have a very clearly defined self. We lack boundary. We lack the ability to set a boundary and enforce boundary with people. Self-expression is a born right. It doesn't matter if my request sounds weird to people. It doesn't matter if I express my needs imperfectly. I could really decide how to respond to people based on how I feel and what states am I in. For example, I can take the high road sometimes, and sometimes when I'm in a bad mood, I just decide to take the low road. It doesn't matter if other people might see me as unprofessional or rude. It's just what I needed at that time, because my feelings are validated. The biggest benefit of spending time by ourselves to do self-reflection is that our energy becomes no longer stagnant. It becomes like a flow. And it flows in different kind of state, and it flows in different kind of relationships, and it all comes down to how we feel at that time. The third step is to be disciplined in practicing self-love. One thing I often say in this channel is that self-love is an art. It's both a feeling and an action. You gotta prioritize healing and mental health over fancy things. For example, when I was out of college, I got my first job, and I wasn't very abundant at that time. And I was faced with a lot of options. For example, I could hang out with friends, go to bars every week. I could save up the money for vacation or luxury brands. or I could just like spend randomly. But I made the wisest decision in my life, and that's transformational because I decided to go into healing. I found myself a therapist. And because I wasn't very abundant at the time, I was consulting in a very low frequency. And I bought tons of books to study. I subscribed both Headspace and Calm for meditation. I enrolled in CBT class, which is cognitive behavior therapy. And I was basically self-teaching myself through the whole healing process. And when I got into senior year, I got more money coming in. I invested more in therapy sessions. I increased the frequency of it. And I think that's the wisest thing I've ever done for myself. As a result of it, I've gotten to know myself so much better, and I have identified numerous harmful thinking patterns which allowed me to break free from them and heal those parts of myself. I'm not saying like you need to start with all those things all at once. Picking one self-love ritual or self-love action that works best for you. When it comes to self-love, persistency definitely trumps short-term intensity, because you really need to constantly be aware, constantly remind yourself to be aware of the thinking patterns, to be aware of your behaviors, and to be curious about why you're behaving the way you're doing. Maybe start with 5 or 10 minutes meditation every day. Constant practice observing yourself from a distance. This awareness will allow you to have some space, to have this willingness to explore another possibility. For me, the highest form of self-love is practicing being aware of things. It allows me to have some space before I explosively react to some things, and it kind of just prevents me from engaging in roller coaster emotions. It makes me feel more in control and more stable. Also, act on what you directly want instead of waiting for others to give you. It actually creates a feeling that you deserve it. For me, it was making YouTube videos. I had serious camera shy. I was so worried that how people are going to judge me or react to me when they see my face. But every time I sit here and press record, it's already a huge progress for myself. And afterwards, I would feel this strong sense of achievement, which in turn increased my self-esteem. Another thing we could do is to practice compassionate self-talk. For this, you can watch my video, How to Love Yourself, 2 healing techniques to change your life. I'm going to put it somewhere here. And it talked in detail about how to practice compassionate self-talk so that you will have the superpower to give yourself this validation instead of seeking from outside. Alright, my friends, I hope today's video is going to be helpful for you. And if you like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you wanted to see more videos like this, please hit subscribe. And I will see you next time. Bye bye.